Tonight's Democratic presidential debate in Las Vegas will be the first time many Americans get to hear Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders for a significant length of time. Sanders has shocked the political world this year, turning a small grassroots effort into a significant national campaign. My colleague Brett Baer, on assignment tonight, profiles Sanders in our Presidential Contenders series.
A year ago, no one could predict the huge crowds and the surge of popularity for 74-year-old Senator Bernie Sanders.
Whoa! Unbelievable. This is an unbelievable turnout.
Even he's been blown away by it.
What a huge crowd.
The independent senator from Vermont caucuses with the Democrats in the Senate and is a committed Democratic socialist. And he's not afraid for everybody to know it.
Are you a capitalist?
No, I'm a Democratic socialist. But what I mean is I've been elected as an independent throughout my political career. I am running now in the Democratic nomination process and will support, I hope to win, I expect to win.
Sanders officially launched his campaign from Vermont in May.
I am proud to announce my candidacy for President of the United States of America.
Sanders jumped quickly in the polls, especially in early states, and his favorability tripled. For third quarter fundraising, his campaign reported $26 million, just $2 million less than Hillary Clinton. But Sanders is spending a lot less. Most of Sanders' fundraising comes from small donations. His campaign has only held a handful of traditional fundraisers.
I think he's not an establishment candidate, and it's refreshing.
Everything that he says is spot on. I was a Hillary supporter for so long, but I really like what Bernie says.
It's time for a guy that's for the people. I think Bernie's for the people.
And that's Sanders' pitch on the stump, a man who's been around the block fighting for poor and working class Americans.
The agenda that I've outlined to you more progressive than anyone else's.
Among other things, Sanders campaigns on more jobs, a higher minimum wage, free college, and universal health care.
This is the wealthiest country in the history of the world. We can and must do better by working people. We have got to raise the minimum wage to a living wage, $15 an hour over the next few years. We should have pay equity for women workers. I have introduced legislation and will fight to make happen as president to see that every public college and university in America is tuition free. The United States of America remains the only major country on earth that does not guarantee health care to all people as a right.
Sanders' political career began in 1981 when he was elected for the first of 4 terms as the mayor of Burlington, Vermont.
He barely won after having lost a series of races. But he was popular there. They saw him as a down-to-earth individual who did try to do what people wanted done in that town.
His career in Washington began in 1990. Sanders went on to serve 16 years in the House before being elected to the U.S. Senate in 2006.
I believe that destiny has suggested that this small state of Vermont is in fact going to lead America in a very different direction.
Now in his second term, Sanders is the ranking member of the Senate Budget Committee. He previously served as chairman of the Veterans Affairs Committee, helping to pass legislation in 2014 reforming the VA healthcare system. At 74 years old, he's the longest-serving independent in United States congressional history. And yet on the trail, he's not perceived as a career politician.
The other great strength Bernie Sanders has is the ability to communicate effectively and to tell people precisely what he thinks, whether they like it or not. There seems to be a demand in the country for the unpolitician, for someone who comes at them straight.
Sanders promises to run a campaign that's free of negativity, and even traveled to conservative Liberty University to discuss differences in opinion.
But I came here today because I believe from the bottom of my heart that it is vitally important for those of us who hold different views to be able to engage in a civil discourse.
So Hillary Clinton's way too conservative for you, right, Senator?
I would say she's way too conservative, given the problems that this country faces, which is a massive level of wealth and income inequality, a collapsing middle class, and the need to create millions of jobs. The question is, what candidate is out there prepared to deliver for the American working people?
Okay, but it's really tough for a person like Hillary Clinton, who's getting $250,000 a pop for a speech, and who made an enormous amount of money off some kind of commodities trade way back in Arkansas. I think she invested $1,000 and came away with $100 grand. It's got to be pretty hard for her to attack the financial system and high wage earners, is it not?
Well, it may be, but it's hard for any of the candidates out there who today are receiving huge amounts of money from the very wealthiest people in this country.
But that describes her to a T. She's receiving huge amounts of money, and not only from people in America, but from Saudi Arabia and you know, God knows where.
But Bill, let's be fair. It is all candidates out there who are now using super PACs because of this disastrous Citizens United decision. The real question is not just Hillary and it's not just the Republican candidates. Can a candidate run for president of the United States today trying to represent working families? Can you run a decent campaign, or must you be dependent on billionaires?
No, you can, but you have to be charismatic. You have to be grassroots, because the folks will donate to somebody they believe in. I mean, that's what a few candidates are trying to do now who don't have, you know, the cachet connections to raise the money. Look, I don't like the money either. But what I'm trying to tell you is, in the Democratic Party, of which you're a member.
No, I'm an independent, Bill.
Yeah, but you caucus with them, all right?
I caucus with the Democrats,
right.
Yes.
Okay. You got a big problem here. If you're going to attack the financial system, the bankers and the fat cats, you're using a person who's exploited the financial system and who is a fat cat to do it. That's not going to fly.
All right. Well, look, here's the situation. I voted against the Wall Street bailout. I happen to think that the concentration of ownership on Wall Street, where you have 6 financial institutions having almost $10 trillion in assets, is very dangerous for this country. I think we need to break them up. And if you're asking me how many candidates have the guts to say we got to break up these huge Wall Street firms, that's a good question.
No,
I don't know of anybody else who's thinking of running.
There's nobody on the grid. Well, then you got to run, because nobody on the grid right now is going to go that far.
Hi. Yes.
You, in your speech tonight, you said you won't criticize or attack Hillary Clinton, certainly, but you did seem to draw some implicit contrast when you said you don't take money from super PACs and you voted against the Iraq War.
What I said is that corporate media talks about all kinds of issues except the most important issues. Okay? And time after time, I'm being asked to criticize Hillary Clinton. That's the sport that you guys like. The reason this campaign is doing well because we're talking about the issues that impact the American people. I've known Hillary Clinton for 25 years. I like her, I respect her. I disagree with her on a number of issues. No great secret. I oppose the Trans-Pacific Partnership. Okay? I want to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour.
Doesn't she?
No, not to the best of my knowledge, no. I believe I am opposed to the Keystone Pipeline. Okay, I voted against the war in Iraq. I voted against the USA Patriot Act. These are differences of opinions that we will discuss. But the issue that I want to be talking about is the collapse of the American middle class. You guys going to write about that? Yeah. Is that an important issue? Please do. The need to create millions of decent paying jobs. The obscenity of the kind of level of income and wealth inequality that we have today. The reason our campaign is doing well is because people are responding to those issues. So I am not going to get into the game of sitting around attacking Hillary Clinton. We disagree. We're going to have, if I have anything to say about it, a respectful and intelligent debate. Other questions?
Why do you think working class people in America vote against their economic self-interest?
That's a good question. And if I knew the complete answer to that, I'd be a lot smarter than I am. But this is what I will tell you. I think the Republicans have done a brilliant job over the years. They're very smart guys in dividing people on a million different issues. They divide people on gay marriage. They divide people on abortion. They divide people on immigration. And what my job is, and it's not just in blue states, believe me, we're going to go to red states, we're going to go to conservative states, is to bring working people together around an agenda that works for their kids and works for their parents. Raising the minimum wage to $15 an hour. Having a trade policy that creates jobs in America, not in China. Making sure that all of our kids can get a college education regardless of their income. Fighting for pay equity for women workers. We have an agenda that I believe can bring people together. And when we do that, we're going to win this election very easily, I think.
How do you reconcile being the anti-establishment candidate with being a career politician?
Other question.
Well, you said you were a politician. I think that's a fair question.
I've run for office I've been in office for 25 years. As a candidate for mayor of Burlington, I became the first independent ever elected in the city's history by taking on the entire ruling class of the city of Burlington. Does that sound like a career politician? When I began my political career, I received 2% of the vote and then 1% of the vote. Last election, I got 71% of the vote. Running for office, representing working people, taking on Wall Street, taking on the military-industrial complex, taking on private insurance companies, taking on pharmaceutical industry, I don't think that makes me a career politician. I think that makes me as a candidate who is standing up for working people and prepared to take on the big money interest in this country.
Your new
From BuzzFeed UK. I was just wondering.
I'm sorry?
BuzzFeed UK. I was just wondering, are you aware of the rise of Jeremy Corbyn as the UK Labour Party candidate?
Bit, yeah.
And whether that's something you think you can tap into and whether you've got a message
Look,
for that
I
campaign?
think whether it's the UK or here in the United States, here's the answer. People are sick and tired of establishment politics. They are sick and tired of a politics in which candidates continue to represent the rich and the powerful, go out begging money from the wealthy. They are sick and tired of an economics in which almost all of the new income in wealth is going to the top 1%. And they're tired of a media which continues to want to have gotcha questions and make conflict between the candidates rather than talking about the real issues impacting the American people. And that is why I'm not familiar with what's going on daily. I am aware of the candidate. But I think that is what's going on in this campaign. The American people are saying enough is enough. Why is it that almost all new income and wealth is going to the top 1%? Why is it that our kids can't afford to go to college? Why is it that our child care system is dysfunctional? Why is it that we're the only major country on earth that doesn't guarantee health care to all of our people who have family and medical leave? The American people want us to address those issues. They do not want us to be attacking each other. They want a focus, they want a real debate on real issues, and I intend to give it to them. Thank you very much.
Now, Iran.
Well, Bill, I'm not going to ask you. I'm not going to ask you to be my vice presidential candidate. That's it.
Well, if you might have a chance if you did. Now, Iran. All right.
Yeah.
The deal is a bad deal for us. You know that. Everybody who can read knows that.
No, I don't know that.
Do you really trust the mullahs? Do you really trust them not to cheat? Do you really? Well, they're saying, Senator, we're not going to let you inspect our military installations. Okay, come on. Come on.
All right, look, Bill, this is what you got. You got a situation where I don't trust Iran, the Iranians don't trust the United States. This agreement is not being built on trust.
Well, what is it being built
on? Verification.
But if they say they're not going to let... Look, the mullah Khomeini came out last week and says, we're not going to let you inspect our military installations, Senator. You heard him.
All right. Yeah, but the military installations, what we will inspect is whether or not they have a capability of moving toward a nuclear weapon.
How would you know if you can't inspect the military installations where they hide this stuff? How would you know?
Well, but you're assuming that they hide themselves. I am assuming that we're going to have an agreement.
I'm assuming that.
I am. All right, well, Bill, we can, argue till the cows come home. Here's the bottom line to me. All right. I voted against the war in Iraq because I thought it would do what it did, destabilize the region. What we need to do is to make sure that Iran does not get a nuclear weapon. But I got to tell you,
I am not pleased that we have a number of my colleagues here who think that going to war against Iran would be okay. It would not be okay. So I support
last resort.
that the president is... I'm sorry?
It's a last resort, but it has to be in play if you are definitely going to stop them. But
it's a horrible resort, and we have to do everything that we can to prevent that.
All right.
I see London, I see France, I see Bernie Sanders' underpants. Yep, the Democratic presidential candidate now has his own underwear line. Employees at a Vermont company launched a side business selling Bernie's briefs online only. They come in two styles, one for men and the other for women. The cost? $15, and 10% of proceeds will go towards the Yellow Ribbon Fund, which supports injured service members. The underwear even has Bernie's face on them. That way, folks sporting the garment goods can feel the burn all day long. The underwear line was likely inspired by a Saturday Night Live skit where Larry David, playing the Vermont senator, joked about Sanders owning only one pair of panties. Following the performance, Sanders continued to roll with the punches at an Iowa campaign event.
Yes, last week I bought my second pair of underwear.
Yeah!
That's a joke. Please don't write it down. That was a joke. Joke. I have an ample supply of underwear. And, even have, when I was mayor of the city of Burlington, I think I did have one suit, but I have now, being a United States Senator, increased my number of suits.
No word on whether Bernie Sanders' suits will go up for sale as well, but at least now there's no need to worry about a dirty election season. For FoxNews.com, I'm Lee Sheps.
Political Insiders with Harris Faulkner. Bernie Sanders, John, has said that he can be nominated, he can beat Hillary Clinton. Is he right?
No, he cannot be nominated. He cannot beat Hillary Clinton. But Hillary Clinton is beatable. You proved it with your polling 2 months ago. At that time, if Elizabeth Warren had run in Iowa and New Hampshire, she was within striking distance. She's not running. They're looking for somebody. The bigger issue is the polling itself. Can I, as an American, trust any of these polls?
Ever wonder what the difference is between a Democrat and a socialist? Well, you better not ask the head of the Democratic National Committee.
What's the big difference between a Democrat and a socialist? You're the chairman of the Democratic Party. Tell me the difference between you and a socialist.
The relevant debate that we'll be having over the course of this campaign is what's the difference between a Democrat and a Republican?
So she didn't know the answer then, but then she got a second chance yesterday to answer the question.
Can you explain the difference?
You know, Chuck, it's always fun to be interviewed by Chris Matthews, and I know that he enjoys that banter. The important distinction that I think we're going to be discussing, I'm confident we'll be discussing in this campaign, is the difference between Democrats and Republicans.
But that wasn't the question. And why didn't she answer the question? Let's talk to Fox News contributor and editor-in-chief of RedState.com, Eric Erickson, joining us today from Macon, Georgia. Good morning to Eric.
Good morning.
There is a difference between a socialist and a Democrat, isn't there?
There used to be. I don't know that there is anymore. It's a relevant question because Bernie Sanders has been an open socialist in the U.S. Senate, but he's running as a Democrat for president. So there really is a difference she should answer. But I don't know that there really is a difference anymore.
Do you think the reason she was reluctant and just kept deflecting was because she didn't want to anger Bernie's 10% or whatever he's got?
Yeah, I think probably so. But also, you know, polling suggests most Americans don't really care for open socialists. And she can't really say, well, there's no difference between us and the socialists anymore.
The Democratic establishment may be backing Hillary Clinton, but big labor is starting to peel away. Several local chapters of the AFL-CIO have started backing Bernie Sanders against the wishes of their national leadership. This as Sanders edges closer to Clinton in recent polls done in key early primary states.
Take a look at this. Nearly 30,000 people at a rally in Portland to support socialist Bernie Sanders, who just surged ahead of Clinton as a candidate in New Hampshire. Is this another sign of Democrats moving even further to the left? Joe Trippi is a former campaign manager for Howard Dean, and Lisa Booth, Vice President of Political Polling and Public Affairs Research at WPA. Thank you both for joining me here. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good to be with you. So when you see these poll numbers, he's ahead of Hillary right now in New Hampshire, 44% to 37%. In March, it was 44 to 8. So, Joe, let me start with you. What does this indicate?
You know, that there's an insurgency on the Democratic side, like and an anti-establishment feeling on the Democratic side that's been there for a long time, and the same thing that you see on the Republican side with Trump and others who are outside of the normal, what the establishments in both parties want to see as their nominee. But that feeling out there is right now being consolidated by Bernie Sanders on the Democratic side.
Sure. The question is whether he can expand that outside of just the progressives. Lisa, let me get to you here. So if Hillary Clinton started off as basically the inevitable candidate, is she still inevitable?
I don't. Hillary Clinton is no longer inevitable, and I think that's what this means. Look, there's a reason that Hillary Clinton went up with a $2 million ad buy in Iowa and New Hampshire, because she's desperately trying to rebrand her image. She's lost ground with key constituencies like African Americans, white women, and independents. Her favorability ratings are at an all-time low, and the majority of Americans don't trust her. And
Well, pollster Frank Luntz has put together a focus group for us, picking a cross-section of voters from the key swing state of Florida tonight. And when it comes to creating moments, it looks like Bernie Sanders got some of the strongest reactions. Joining me now, CEO of Luntz Global, Frank Luntz. Hi, Frank. What'd you find out?
Hey, Megan. Now we got Democrats here, 28 Democrats. How many of you walked in here supporting Hillary Clinton? Raise your hands. Half of you. How many of you are still supporting Hillary Clinton? Only a small percentage. So who won the debate?
Bernie Sanders!
Give me a word or phrase to describe Bernie Sanders tonight.
For the people. Strong.
Straightforward.
Confident.
Insider and outsider.
Direct.
Sincere.
Powerful.
Educator.
Smart.
But he's a socialist. He actually answered the question about being a socialist. I know you're nodding your head no. He's proud of being a socialist. Do you really think this guy can win? Do you?
Let me say something that may not be great politics, but I think the secretary is right. And that is that the American people are sick and tired of hearing about your damn emails.
Thank you. Me too. Me too.
You know? The American people want to know whether we're going to have a democracy or an oligarchy as a result of Citizens United. Enough of the emails. Let's talk about the real issues facing America.
Incredible. So I got to ask you, why was that moment so powerful to you that you guys were in the 90s? I heard several people saying you wanted to turn your dial beyond 100. What was it?
He said enough about the email. Let's get to the topics. He was almost protecting her and being a man about it, a gentleman, and say, let's get to what the real topics are. I thought that was very respectable.
Sorry. It's just such a non-issue, and I'm glad that he addressed it like that and got it out of the way.
If you need any more proof that Bernie Sanders is the real deal, watch this clip from Fox News. Sounds like they're getting a little bit scared.
Has Sanders moved his party left? No. The party is left, and it actually wasn't Sanders. President Obama has transformed the Democratic Party. It is now so far left that Hillary Clinton is having to try to get to his left in order to protect the base.
Right.
I do think that Hillary Clinton's team is a little bit rattled about the crowds that Bernie Sanders can get. And one of the things that's nice about him, he's authentic. Mm-hmm. He's not faking it. He does believe what he's saying. I disagree with it. But he does a persuasive job of the people that he's talking to, of telling them that basically you're going to get all of these things, we're going to be able to pay for them, is not a problem. I actually think that he could be more of a threat in places than they originally anticipated.
This is a special note to Senator Bernie Sanders. It's not true. It might even be a lie. Now, I read in a Vermont newspaper called 7 Days that your campaign senator is complaining about being ignored by TV network newscasts. Not true. We constantly ask your campaign for an interview, but get a giant no. And not only do we call you all the time, in just the last 4 months, we've made 19 interview requests in writing. Okay, I know, I'm not network but cable, so maybe technically it's not a lie. It does say you think you are ignored by television networks.
There's no getting around it. The media just aren't taking Bernie Sanders seriously. Now, on the surface, that might seem flat wrong. After all, the Vermont senator is suddenly getting all kinds of attention, stories in major newspapers, television coverage as he draws big crowds in places like Madison, Wisconsin, as he raised $15 million in the last quarter, about a third of Hillary Clinton's haul, and as he obviously seems to be tapping into something and resonating with the liberal base of the Democratic Party. A guy who was initially viewed as a kind of a fringe candidate, a 73-year-old socialist who had no hope of making a serious showing, is shaking things up quite a bit. Here's why I say media not taking him seriously. Because if we were treating Sanders as anything other than entertainment, we would be holding him to a lot tougher standard. The things that he says, which obviously warm liberal hearts, when he talks about, a huge increase in taxes, when he talks about breaking up the big banks, when he talks about a single-payer Medicare-like healthcare system for everybody. Now, if we really thought this guy could be the Democratic nominee, those kinds of positions will be subject to a lot of media analysis and scrutiny. But go beyond that. Here's what's really going on. The press doesn't want to spoil the fun. We want to cover Bernie as a kind of phenomenon because that creates at least the illusion of a race against Hillary Clinton. At the same time, we don't want to look too closely at his positions or the controversies or the things that he has said or has written that would cause a huge explosion if it were any other candidate, because that spoils the fun. Nobody wants to knock him out too early. Now, I'm not defending this. I think if given the reaction that Sanders has gotten, that we ought to take him seriously, and we ought to cover him with the same aggressiveness as we cover Hillary or any other candidate. That doesn't seem to be happening. It might change, I suppose.
Well, meanwhile, Debbie Wasserman Schultz was supposed to be the star of the show, the head of the DNC yesterday at this big event. But things turned kind of ugly when she started getting heckled and couldn't even speak, because the people in the crowd want debates. They want more debates, and they want more of an open process. Listen to the crowd yesterday.
We want debates. We want debates. One of his supporters called President Obama a Muslim. We want debates. My friends. We want debates. We want debates. We want debates.
I think they want debates.
What do primary voters think about this, though? Oh, Hillary Clinton doesn't want a debate, but we definitely want her picking up the 3 a.m. phone call from some dictator who's about to declare war on us. Or maybe the primary voters just hope that when that call comes in, Bill picks up.
Breaking news tonight in the Democratic presidential race. Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders is taking his party to court. He says Democrats are freezing him out of information he's entitled to have and showing blatant favoritism for Hillary Clinton. Senior political correspondent Mike Emanuel has details.
Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders' campaign is fighting back, threatening to take the Democratic National Committee to court. The DNC accused the Sanders campaign of improperly accessing confidential voter information gathered by rival Hillary Clinton's campaign. Campaign manager Jeff Weaver came out swinging, claiming party leadership is actively favoring Clinton.
Individual leaders of the DNC can support Hillary Clinton in any way they want. But if the DNC continues to hold our data hostage and continues to try to attack the heart and soul of our grassroots campaign, we will be in federal court this afternoon seeking immediate relief.
The Sanders campaign fired Josh Uretsky, its national data director, and is blaming the vendor the DNC uses, NGP Van, for dropping its firewall between the candidates' data. The Sanders campaign has been suspended from accessing the system, including its own information.
Information which is the lifeblood of this campaign. We need our data, which has been stolen by the DNC.
The DNC chair strongly denied the charge of favoritism.
I can be quite certain that if the shoe were on the other foot and the Clinton campaign had inappropriately accessed Sanders' campaign proprietary information, I'm confident that this is the decision that they would expect from us, and it is the same decision that we would make if the shoe were on the other foot.
Clinton campaign press secretary Brian Fallon said the data was breached, quote, by Sanders campaign staff in 25 searches by 4 different accounts, and that this data was saved into the Sanders campaign account. Meanwhile, a new Fox News poll reveals Clinton has a 56-34 lead over Sanders, with former Maryland Governor Martin O'Malley at 2% among Democratic primary voters. This comes the day before the third Democratic presidential debate. In the New York Times yesterday, Frank Bruni criticized the invisible Democratic debates and wrote, quote, "What a shamefully imbalanced primary season this has been. The Democratic candidates have, in contrast, hidden in a closet." And a political analyst in the Granite State says tomorrow night's debate should have limited impact.
I don't think the debate is going to be critical for New Hampshire. First off, it's the Saturday before Christmas on a Saturday night. Nobody's going to be watching this. It's going to be people are going to learn about it by reading the paper the next day rather than seeing the debate.
Late today, the Sanders campaign filed a lawsuit in federal court pushing to regain access to that voter database. The campaign saying they're sustaining irreparable injury and financial losses that should add some drama to tomorrow night's debate.